Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. It is Tuesday, which means it is time for another Tuesday technique. Now our technique today is sort of building a little bit on what we did last week. So last week I showed you some fussy cutting and gave you some tips on kind of how best to go about fussy cutting if it's something that is new to you. But I wanted to show you something else as well. So I have stamped the Lovely Day sentiment from the Lovely Florals stamp set, and I've got the stamp here. So I've already stamped my image, and so a way to kind of take some of the guesswork out of how to fussy cut around a sentiment. I think it can be a little bit tricky sometimes deciding how to cut around a sentiment, especially if fussy cutting is not something that you're used to or something you feel very confident doing. So for today's technique, so I've stamped my image already, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my stamp over the top, and then I'm going to take my Stampin' Up marker. You could use a pencil, you can use a biro, whatever you've got on hand. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully hold my stamp in place, and then I'm just going to draw around the outside of my photopolymer stamp. I'm sorry if my head gets in the shot. So I'm literally just following the line of my stamp all the way around, and it is a little bit tricky because my stamp's a little bit wobbly because it's photopolymer, but you're just kind of getting the general shape. Around we go, all the way around. And then that last bit. So it's a little bit wobbly, but we have got the general kind of shape. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my scissors, and then I'm going to cut just inside that black line. So I'm not leaving any of that black line behind. I'm just following the shape of the stamp. Just trim away some of that excess, and then you might find that you might need to go back in a couple of places maybe to just make sure that we've got rid of all of that outline, but you're just aiming to cut just inside that line all the way around. And again, so the same tips as last week. So never fully closing your scissors, moving the paper, not your scissors. Aiming to be doing all of that cutting kind of really close to where those scissor blades join together. And then we're just going to keep going all the way around. So I'm showing you today with a sentiment, but you could do exactly the same with an image stamp, whatever photopolymer stamp you've used, you can just go around like that, and then you have the perfect fussy cut sentiment. It's so clever, isn't it? It's such a simple idea, but it can be a real game changer, especially if you're kind of new to it and you're not super confident. But also, even as a seasoned crafter, sometimes just something that will take out some of the guesswork, some of the brain power. You know, I think we'd all much rather spend our brain power on kind of coming up with lovely designs. Sometimes what shape to fussy cut our sentiment can be kind of just a step too far. So yeah, so that's the technique for today. So how to kind of decide what shape to fussy cut your image without any of the guesswork. Also, if you're making multiples of something where you're having to fussy cut because you don't have a die, or because you want a different shape than the die gives you, this is a really good way to kind of make them all uniform. So if you're making several, if you've drawn around the photopolymer stamp, then they're all going to look the same in the end. So that was it for today. So as always, on a Tuesday, I show you a technique and not a project. So today is week 4. I do hope that you will stick around and join me every Tuesday for the rest of the year. And who knows, maybe even beyond. Depends if I can come up with that many techniques, although I'm sure I can. There's lots and lots that I've got planned for you. If you've enjoyed today's video, I would love it if you would give it a like, leave me a comment. I read everything that you guys post, and I do a little happy dance every time I get a like and a comment or a new subscriber. So if you haven't already, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel, ring the bell so you get notified whenever I post new videos. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you next week. Take care. Bye.